we were going to spend some time really getting into and talking a little bit about meditation, what it is, types of meditation, a little brain science to let you know that meditation actually does something, because sometimes it's hard to see if anything's happening. And Melissa's gonna give us a chance to meditate a couple of times, a short meditation, and then we'll have a little longer meditation. So you'll actually experience a couple of different meditation techniques today. So welcome. My name is Jeff Gamer, CMC class of 84, Benson dorm, go Benson. I've been meditating for about 7 years, and really for me, it was a moment when suddenly my normal ways of letting stress go and cope, which was athletics, just didn't seem to do the trick. Life was kind of coming at me faster than ever, although really it probably was always coming that fast. And anyway, things were looking pretty tough, and that's Melissa had been meditating for a year, and I turned towards it and joined her willingly, not so much under duress, but it was a great move, because 7 years later, I'm really happy with. I've learned a lot about me, learned a lot about stuff, really happy so much that when I retired from corporate life a couple of years ago, Melissa and I decided to open our own meditation studio. With that, I'll swing you over to my wife. I'm not sure which direction she is on your screen, to let her introduce herself.
Hi. So I'm the other half of Meditation for Regular People, the proud graduate of the University of Missouri, or Mizzou, as you probably know it. And I was a corporate trainer for many years. I was kind of a really hard charger. Jeff and I, the one thing Jeff and I have in common is we both work for Arthur Andersen. And when I worked there, part-time was 55 hours a week. That was an 80% schedule. So I was a super hard charger. And so I also sort of lost my coping mechanism of being athletic. I got hurt a couple times and had to have some surgeries. And suddenly, as I like to say, my whoopee was gone of just being able to go out and hike or climb or cycle or whatever it is I was going to do. And I was really in danger of losing my relationship with my kids. They were 7 and 8, and angry mommy was not particularly popular around the house. And Jeff and I were also struggling. We've been together for 10 years.
Yeah, 10 years, yeah.
We were sort of just onboarding, getting together, and for those of you who have been in subsequent marriages, people who marry in their 40s and 50s come with some baggage, just a teeny bit. And so we really learned it together. I started out and then got Jeff into it, and it's really become a way of life for us. We eat, breathe, and sleep meditation because we do own a business, and particularly right now we're really into it. But we're fascinated by ancient teachings, which we bring to what we're doing, as well as we are completely fascinated by the brain, and love to read brain studies and talk about this is how your brain works. We had a concert next door to our house yesterday. We are blessed to live next to a Grateful Dead tribute band that is in their 50s, so they play well, but they don't party as hard as the Grateful Dead. And we were just watching them play and breaking down the parts of the brains that were involved, and like, wow, that is really dialing that in. They're singing at the same time, and they're waving, and they're running the iPad, and they're drinking. That's incredible to see how the brain works. And Jeff will talk a little bit more about how the brain ages and how you can really, one of your best defenses against Alzheimer's, dementia, any kind of cognitive decline in your later years is through meditation and giving your brain that break. So we formed the studio. The name of our studio is Meditation for Regular People, because we live in Portland, Oregon. You guys know that this is sort of the keep Portland weird is our mantra. And we would go to something and it was too Buddhist-y, it was too religious. We walked into crystal grids and all kinds of things that we were like, we just want to learn how to meditate. We're hard chargers, and we want to take our anxiety level down and do something good for our brain. I don't necessarily want to smell like patchouli. And there's lots of people that really respond to that. We just weren't with them. And also both being high achievers, we would try to read a book or take a quick class and say, well, or read some article, oh, here's how you meditate. And then when we couldn't do it, we felt worse than ever. And that's a lot. About a third of our clients are people who've gone to a therapist, and the therapist says, you need to learn how to meditate. Here's a book. And then when they don't catch on and they're not good at it right away, they almost feel worse. So we have a lot of bounce backs from people who are in therapy, and we often work in tandem. We have a few therapists that tend to send people to us because they know what they're going to get. So today we're going to, that's what we're going to do. We're going to do a couple meditations. You will be meditating here. If you've never meditated before, today's your day. We'll show you how easy it is, and we will give you some techniques that you can use at home. Did I forget anything?
No, that was pretty good. I'm excited. Let's do it.
So you want to meditate?
I'm going to settle in a little bit. That coffee's got me a little bit.
So we also, we're not like some new age couple that like sits around all day, talks about new age things. As I always say, we're more likely to talk about the benefits of tequila sometimes than meditation. But so we're going to do a short meditation. It's going to be about 5-6 minutes of settling in and just kind of hanging out with a really a technique that I use all the time. I use it a lot with people who have anxiety. So we always tell people how long they're going to meditate. Because if you don't, half the meditation is, how long am I going to be here? So probably be 5-6 minutes. Raise your hand if you've meditated with us before on the sleep. I recognize a lot of people, but okay. All right. Are we your only meditation teacher so far? Oh, we can load you. So let's get comfy. And what that means is having your feet on the floor if it's possible. If it's not possible, if that's not comfortable for you, that's okay. But really getting settled in your seat. It's not about how devoutly you can sit up with your fingers in the perfect mudra, bringing in your kundalini energy. It's just what's comfortable for you to sit and be in your space. The first thing we're going to do is settle our bodies. So I'm going to ask you guys to close your eyes because that's going to take the stimulation down quite a bit. And when you're first starting, it's really easier to meditate with your eyes closed. So go ahead and drop your eyes closed. We're just going to begin to settle our bodies by really feeling what it's like to sit on the chair or the couch that you're sitting. So really feel all those points of contact. And just take in what it's like to just begin to sit still. We all probably hurried a little bit to get here today. Maybe grab that last beverage. We're often going from 0 to 60, but today we're going to go from 60 to 0 and just bring it down to a slow stop. Let's begin by resting your attention just on where your hands are sitting. However they're sitting, however they're resting. Just rest your attention on your hands. You might notice that they're a little bit warmer wherever they're touching. Maybe the tops are a little bit cooler. You might even notice that you're getting the urge to move them just because I'm talking about them. And let's bring your attention to your sit bones. Your sit bones, or how you're resting on your chair. Just let those plug into your chair. And if anything becomes more interesting than your sit bones, and it probably has, there's sounds in your space, there's sounds in our space. It's okay. Just bring your attention back to those sit bones and plug them back into your seat. And bring your attention to your feet. Shift your attention to your feet, how they're resting on the ground, how they're resting in your space. And then split your attention between your hands, your sit bones, and your feet. Just kind of grounding yourself into your space. And if anything becomes more interesting than those 3 points, hands, sit bones, feet, just come on back. No pressure. And while we're sitting here, of course, we're having thoughts, we're taking in sensations of sounds, maybe the temperature. And when a thought or a sensation comes up, I'd like for you to label it pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. Pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. I'm just going to sit here for about 5 minutes or so. And each time something comes up, people may not be muted. You may have sounds in your house. We may have some sounds in our house. Each time something comes up, take a second to label it pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. And then move on. And let's see what that feels like for a few minutes. Let's begin. Let's all take a long, slow, deep breath in together. And gently let that go. Let's take another long, slow, deep breath in together. And slowly release it. When you feel ready, you can let your eyes open. So, how did that go for you guys? Thumbs up, thumbs down. Anybody wants to take themselves off mute, they're welcome to share. We're sort of hard coded. It's great or it's terrible, right? Look who we elected, bigly. It's great or it's terrible. If your partner or someone in your home prepares a meal for you and they say, how is it? And you say, it's, I'm neutral. It might be the last meal you get. So we're very decisive about it's great, it's terrible, it's great, it's terrible. But that neutral space, how many of you guys found that a lot of things that came up, you're like, yeah, I'm pretty neutral on that. And not just, I want to be a good guy for the meditation teacher, but we're pretty neutral on it. And we really found this, Jeff and I have been, since he retired, we've been cooking a lot of Asian food, which is not either one of our fortes. So we're trying to find some new food, and we're also trying to stimulate our brains doing something different. And when we're going to these grocery stores where nothing is in English, and there's probably 150 different kinds of soy sauce, and they're all priced the same, and we can't read any of the labels, how do we know which one is the best? Is it the shape? Is it the size? Will it fit in our cupboard? We don't know. And we really found our brains going because we couldn't find a place to even grab a toehold to decide whether or not it was attractive enough for us to reach out and put it in our carts. So we are very hard coded into that. We see a car, that's a great car. Oh, who would drive that car? We're often very polarized. So this is it's a nice exercise to see that the middle way, it's not too bad to be in the middle way. How did you guys feel? Anybody want to speak up? Just put your thumb up and unmute yourself so I know that you're coming in.
I felt like it was really easy to let go of things that my mind would normally hang on to if I just instantly assigned it to something and let it go.
Nice. Nice. So that's another great exercise when you find yourself that you're really caught up in as my daughter says, you're lost in your own sauce and you're getting worked up on something, to really just sit down and do that exercise, pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. Go ahead.
I was focused on the breathing from last time. And then the clock actually it was neutral, but I focused on that. And I was surprised because I felt like I was not asleep, but not awake. I don't know if that's where I want to be.
With that attitude, you could teach the class because it is a lot of unknowing, and that place, particularly when we meditate with other people, there's mirror neurons. So we're picking up on each other. So it's a little easier to slide in, just like at a sports event. As soon as there's one play, everybody goes. But that is that space of, I'm not sure if I'm asleep and I'm not sure if I'm awake. We call that the gap. That is meditation. That's sort of what if we're shooting for anything, that's what we're shooting for. But ironically, if we shoot for it, that's the second it goes away. So perfect. And the clock is a great space to just hear that ticking and let yourself go to it and then sort of let go of it. Nice. Anything you want to add?
No, you guys did great. I find that I find that the predominant thought in my head is, I'm supposed to be labeling things, and I'm not really thinking anything other than like I'm waiting for the next thought to label. It's like, man, chill out. So even after all these years, it's still, I have to remind myself to apply the technique and be there and let go. Great exercise.
Best place for this exercise is when you're on an airplane and someone sits next to you that's either chatty or has a screaming child. Because right away you're like, you know what? I'm not, oh my God, why would they do this? Why is this person talk? Or why does this person insert what people do on airplanes? It brings you into that space where you're much more the middle ground. So you ready to move on?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, cool. We're right on
We have
time.
some activity in the chat if you want to.
Oh, I'm sorry. Let's see. I had a song. I'm going to start with the newest. Okay, let me move the computer. I went from focusing on the breathing to listening, ticking the clock. Okay, we got that one. That's where you want to be. Work. Thank you. Hands, feet, and hands, feet, and sit bones. Those are awesome. I had a song stuck in my head. Happens all the time, especially the Empire Carpet. Now we're all thinking about Empire Carpet. Sorry. But yeah, it happens, and just letting it go. And sometimes you even, okay, let me just sing it one more time. Just one more time. I did a little bit, just one more time, just letting it go. And that's okay. The self-talk, and Jeff's going to talk a little bit about the self-talk, but as soon as we sit down to be quiet, this starts in our head. Is it okay if I talk about this right now?
Sure.
The voice. So one of my teacher calls it the movie of me, starring me, featuring me, special guest me, produced by me, with cameo appearances by me. And I'm either playing the villain of, oh my God, I can't believe I did this, or I'm the victim. How could they do this to me? And we're constantly, everybody have this voice? Thumbs up if you have this voice. If you don't, you're probably clinically dead. I have a yoga teacher friend who calls it the itty bitty shitty committee. They just have one agenda item. It's right here. Your mother was right, whatever it is. And it runs all the time. And sometimes you're commenting on the voice. Like, I'm really talking to myself. Like, now I'm talking to myself about talking to myself. And it even changes. If I'm in the laundry room, that's a sticking spot. Watch Jeff's face. The laundry room is a mess. And I'll go down and I have a whole conversation just for my feelings about the laundry room sometimes. And we're not going to be able to shut that off. We're just going to be able to turn the volume down on it and make it a little bit kinder. Now, if you want to know, some people call it the press secretary that reports on everything, or the world's meanest food critic. Oh, she's going to the kitchen. I see she's having some cookies. Well, she's trying to lose weight. We don't think the cookies are going to get there. Any commentary? That's going on in your head all the time, and particularly at night. This is going to turn the volume down and break that cycle of constantly being in our own heads. And once you begin to give it a break, your brain likes it a lot. And that's why we get these creative thoughts. That's why maybe a song from, 20 years ago or 15 years ago will pop in your head, because suddenly your brain has all this availability. We got a question about the most significant long-term, and we're going to cover that a little bit later, Robin, but thank you for asking that. That's a tremendous question. We love that question.
Hey, just another comment about the song. On the one hand, it's kind of nice to have a song in your head, because you're not getting that constant feed of negative thoughts and criticisms. But on the other hand, I realized really quickly that having a song in your head is still the same of your brain latching onto something and kind of running out the rope. It's not calming. It's sort of like a simmering, if you will. Something going on in the background, a little agitation is simmering. So even though you got that song going and it isn't negative, your brain is still it's a sign your brain is running something out. It isn't calm. And unfortunately, what it meant is I found myself in the shower catching myself. It's like, ooh, I got a song. And I'm like, dude, let it go. It's a song, release it, blah. So interesting.
So good questions. I want to do just a teeny bit of education here about the types of meditation, because meditation's, it's like saying food. It's huge. So we want to break it down into the 3 buckets that we tend to use, are breath, focus, and contemplative. So breath, what we did right there was actually a breath meditation. It was focused on the breath. It's called noting. It's more of a Buddhist technique. That's anytime you have a friend that says, I went on a 10-day meditation retreat. Anybody have that overachieving friend? Or underachieving, if they can, whatever. There I was, pleasant, unpleasant, neutral. That's typically a breath retreat. So you're following your breath the whole time. You may do some noting. The second type is focus meditation, and that can be on a mantra. So that's where you get into transcendental meditation, or TM. Anything that Deepak Chopra teaches is typically a focus meditation. TM has a spotty reputation. So you hear TM, sometimes people are like, oh, I don't want to get into that. And then contemplative is anytime there's a repetition of more like a song, like chanting, like you see Krishna Das or any kind of chanting, or people have a harmonium, or a really beautiful practice called metta or loving kindness, which is it's a very popular contemplative meditation. So you might hear that. And that can be all the way up to saying a rosary over and over. Those of us who've said novenas for years, that's a form of contemplative meditation. So we teach all three, but today we're just be learning some focus and some breath meditation. So a little background, and then I'm gonna turn it over to Jeff. Let's see, we got one, hard to get the depressing news. Okay, Dan, that's a great comment. Everyone's more anxious these days with COVID. And it's hard to get the depressing news out of your mind. Yeah, because our brains, and Jeff's probably going to talk a little bit about this, but our brains are looking for patterns, and we're always solution oriented. We're always trying to put something together. And we talk about this. If any of you guys played Tetris in the 80s, and 90s, everything looks like Tetris after that. When you're driving, you're like, oh man, I could drop a bus right there on that street and I could make a level. Or you're in the grocery store going, I could drop the cornflakes right there. That's called the Tetris effect, that you start to notice that. If you buy a Prius, all of a sudden you notice that everybody in the whole world has a Prius. We're always looking for patterns, and particularly with the COVID, that cranks that up into overdrive, and to the point where the engine in there is pretty much smoking. So most definitely coming back to your breath and just giving your breath a break of those neurons. We're going to talk about where I'm finding and Jeff's going to talk a little bit about that. So I'm going to turn that over to you.
So much, yeah. Yeah, and there's also this pandemic has given us one more sense of helplessness, one more giant impact on our lives that we can't control, but yet our brains can be super busy trying to assign cause, effect. What does this mean? And how does somehow COVID-19 justify my feelings about hating this person? That's the way it is. So a couple of things really quickly. Melissa was telling you what meditation is. What meditation is not, it is not religious. It really isn't tied or a part of any religion. There are no beliefs you have to accept. There's no Swami you have to swear allegiance to. You can pause, take a moment, sit, stand, walk, follow your breath and calm your mind at any time. It's not a form of self-improvement. It's not, we have enough self-improvement goals in our lives. Meditation really is about being with you as you are. It's kind of a way to get to know yourself, not change yourself, although it will change yourself, but it does that on its own. And then finally, it isn't sitting somewhere blissfully emptying your mind of all thoughts and waiting for someone to tap you on the shoulder and say, you're enlightened, my friend, you're all done, right? We have 60 to 80,000 thoughts a day that come into our brain every day, every 1.5 seconds. We can't stop the brain. If you had no thoughts on a meditation, you'd be clinically dead, right? But the one thing we can do, as we sort of did this morning, is we can sort of step aside. It's like go sit on a grassy hill and just watch that train go by, car after car after car, and get out of its way and watch them go by and let go of each thought as they come. So that's a good segue into brain science. So here's the quick deal. We're running 21st century software on hardware that's 3 million years old. We have a hardware issue, and meditation can really help us create an upgrade that we can apply to it, the hardware, so that we run our software a lot more smoothly. The reptilian parts of our brain keep constant vigilance and scanning our environments for threats of danger, for people to procreate with and advance the species, things to eat, or perhaps people that might help us do better at all three as well. And the systems that create and notify us of threats to our existence seem to have the biggest switch, the biggest jolts. these parts of our brain have been around forever, and they use powerful hormones, neurotransmitters, whatever. They use powerful chemicals to create emotions and sensations in our body that create extreme discomfort, and sort of it lulls us or pushes us towards taking some kind of an action to feel better. I mean, these are like big Frankenstein switches. They're not subtle. The exercise we did, pleasant, desire, craving, unpleasant, dissatisfaction, agitation, like panic, pain. These are our fight or flight mechanisms, or in creating this craving to draw us to drink something because we're immensely dehydrated, or go after that person we need a mate, etc. So this is our primal brain. The good news is our cerebral cortex sits over all of these mechanisms and has circuitry and can influence and override them. But we've got to build that circuitry. And one of the things meditation is proven to do is that as you meditate and you get these same cravings and notices and alerts, and your ability to let them go means you're actually building deeper circuitry in your cerebral cortex between it and what sent it the message. Neuroplasticity says neurons that fire together wire together. And the more we do this, and the more we feel good about doing it, the brain says, oh, well, this is a good circuit. Let's wire it, fire it, make it better. This is yielding good results. It's not something we want to avoid. So
Can I jump in and throw an example on that?
oh, sure, yeah.
So I'm the example person. So if you've ever had a bad meal at a restaurant where you walked and you're like, ugh, we're never going there again. The waiter, the food, the bathroom, whatever it was, we start to think about that, and we build it up, and we continue to build the story because our brain loves to close the loop. We do not like open loops. That's why we don't like cliffhangers. So we wire, and you can get to the point that every time you drive by that restaurant, you'll wince a little bit. Like, ugh, remember that time we ate there? It could be 5 years later that I wouldn't go near that place. And we've built it up so much in our mind because our brain loves that. Same with playing the guitar. You learn a couple chords, you get them in, and you have it in. So that wiring can work for positive things like learning the guitar, or learning how to cook, or learning a sport, but it can also go into those negative feelings over and over and over. And I want to clarify a little bit of Jeff's point of the 4 things that we're looking for. Can we mate with it so it can help us out when we see something? Can we eat it? Is it dangerous to us, or can it help us out overall? Can we belong to the tribe? Well, when you look at our modern lifestyles against the brain, okay, if a lot of people on here are probably partnered up or married. If you're not, there's, what's it called?
Tinder.
You swipe, get yourself a mate.
Well, I guess maybe your dark side might like Bumble.
Might like Bumble. Or if you wanted food, like we know right now, we can get Uber Eats in like an hour. You can pretty much get whatever you want within an hour. And so what's left is danger. And so our brain wants to be busy all the time. It rarely takes a break. So that's why when we're talking about, people being more anxious about COVID, or being more anxious about looking at their retirement, or whatever sort of the danger is right now, we're really stuck on there because there's not a lot to do. We create that break when you're in a meditation, you start to grind. Oh man, we're almost out of coffee. What if I don't have coffee? What if I never go to a coffee shop again? What if they're not growing any coffee? Oh my God, what if they forget how to make my latte? Before I get back, right in there, if you just go, hey, let me go back to my breath, you teach these neurons to prune themselves away and go, I'm not that interested in it anymore. How many people have that person that calls them and you see them on the phone, oh, I don't want to talk to this person. You can prune that away so when they come, you don't get such a charge. And that's really what we're doing every time we go back to our breath. So you want to come down to.
Yeah, it's again, it's sort of allowing us to navigate and train us to stay in that kind of middle ground. The extremes are always there, but very rarely are they necessary, or very rarely are they truly descriptive of where we are. And despite all these mechanisms, survival is number one. So our mammalian, our reptilian monkey mind brain is therefore going to have a bias to negativity, meaning if I might miss out on a pleasurable experience because I can always do another one. But if I don't recognize that, oh, by the way, that stick in front of me is really a snake and it bites me and I die, I won't get a second chance. So
we're going to hop into another meditation. We have another question on here. Can meditation help overcome pain? Robin, that's another great question. It can help you manage your pain. It's not going to get rid of the pain, but it's going to help you manage the pain and have a different relationship with it, where it's not always in the front of pruning back. And sometimes there's a tremendous book called Hanscom.
Something like
Take Your Life Back. Yeah, Take Your Life Back, that talks about chronic pain and adding some meditation in there. But it can help your relationship with it by refocusing and not going all the way into biofeedback. Because and that's a great subject, and that might be the subject of another
thing.
I'll put that up in the chat.
I'll put the book in the chat.
So as we prepare to go into our meditation, it's gonna be a little bit longer meditation. It's gonna be 5 hours. So go to the bed. No, I'm kidding. 10 minutes. But we're going to have a Q&A after that, which I almost hesitated to say that because then during the meditation, you're like, oh, here's what I want to ask you guys. When we do Q&A, pretty much nothing is off the table. We love to answer questions about meditation. And again, this is opening up a relationship of if you'd like to email us and ask us a question, we're always happy to answer questions. We want to get as many people meditating as possible, obviously, not just for our business, but because we've seen the profound changes in ourselves, the profound changes in other people. And particularly a lot of us on this call are probably anybody dealing with aging parents, where the anxiety, right? Francisco, I love that. Yeah, that aging parents. And I want to throw in a couple tips right here before we get into our meditation. We kind of weren't planning on doing this, but the best thing you can get them is a snow globe, and have them just shake up the snow globe and watch the snow globe, watch the snow fall. And that will teach them to calm down. I've done that with quite a few older people, is get them to get a snow globe. And that's really what our minds do. We agitate our minds up. And then when we sit and breathe, that snow goes down. You can't stop the snow globe. And there are small ways. It's hard to sit down and say, mom or dad, you need to sit down and meditate and follow your breath. And they're like, oh my God, I got to get this. I got to get a sweater. I got to turn off Fox News or whatever it is they're doing. But to sit down and go, hey, just shake this snow globe once a day and watch it, to keep it really small. And as when Jeff was talking about the brain, as we age, our prefrontal cortex starts to thin out, and meditation is clinically shown to continue to keep that prefrontal cortex robust. Because that's the air traffic controller, sometimes when we're working with our aging parents, they can't decide what to eat, or they can't decide, they get really, if there's any change in their schedule, they get really confused because the prefrontal cortex is physically thinned and they can't make those neural connections anymore. So that can help reconnect it. And the nice thing is we can really, really, really bring our brains into a more robust place. I've definitely noticed it as I've continued to study over the years and kind of watch my brain. I had a slight stroke last July, and I knew exactly where it was in my brain, and I could feel my brain rewire around where the actual stroke was. Pretty incredible. Let's see. Okay, Jeff put that in there. So we're going to do a little meditation. This is a really cool one that you can do at home. Most definitely. This is one of the few meditations that it helps if you have a little bit more sound. So let's get comfy and let's do this thing. We will sit for a little more extended period of time. I'm going to watch the time, and hopefully we'll sit for about 8 minutes or so. For some of you guys, this might be the longest you've ever sat. It's really the first 10 minutes from the time you sit in your cushion to getting into meditation. The first 10 minutes, your body is in likely a full rebellion of what are we doing? We're go people. We're not stop people. And so if you feel a little bit antsy, that's pretty normal. So let's get comfy, whatever that means to you in your space, and go ahead and let your eyes close. That helps you come a little bit more inside. Again, brings down the stimulation. Let's just come into our seats the same way we did before. First, by resting our attention on our hands. How are your hands resting? You guys already know how to do this, so your brain's already wired some of it in. Just resting your attention on your hands. If anything's more interesting than your hands, just say the word hands and come back to your hands. And bring your attention to your sit bones. How are your sit bones resting on your chair? And your feet. Let your feet ground into the floor. And split your attention across those 3 points of contact: hands, sit bones, feet. And let's shift your attention to sounds. Listen to the sounds that you hear in your own space. We have some sounds here. And just listen to a sound, let it go, and wait for the next sound. Resist the urge to tell a story about the sound or get wrapped up in it. Just listen to the sound and let it go. See how far away you can pick up a sound. Now that we're all settled, let's bring your attention to your breath. Just feeling one breath flow all the way in and all the way out. There's no right or wrong way to breathe. We're just letting a breath flow in and out of your body and following it as much as you can, with as much focus as you have right here, right now, today. You don't have to worry about the last breath. It's already passed. You don't have to make a big plan for the next breath. Just be with the breath that's flowing in and out of your body right now. Follow your breath like it's the most interesting thing in the world. That real curiosity. We're going to sit for a little bit, like 7, 8 minutes, and just follow your breath. And each time you get distracted, and you will, we're incredibly brilliant. We have 60 to 80,000 thoughts a day. Some of them are going to come in. Whatever your brain gets hooked on, and you figure that out, just nicely say to yourself, go back to my breath. Go back to your breath. It's how kindly we can come back to our breath over and over without making a big deal of it. So let's sit together and breathe together, and I'll let you know when the time is up. Let's begin just following your breath. Let's take a long, slow, deep breath in together. And gently let that go. Let's take another long, slow, deep breath in together. And slowly release it. When you feel ready, you can open your eyes. All right, you guys meditated. So a meditation is any time we sit down with the intention to meditate. So whether you were all over the place or you got in the zone, anybody get in the zone? A little bit. It's weird on Zoom, most definitely. But that's really it. And it, you probably no one got enlightened. If you did, please put that in the chat that you got enlightened. But it teaches you to settle down. And how many people was this their first time meditating? Awesome. Yeah, good. You came right into our web of good habits. So go ahead and put if you want to ask a question live, unmute yourself, just raise your hand so I know you're coming. You can put in the chat. We're happy to answer some questions. We've got about 6 minutes. I know Jenna will keep an eye on the time. It's really fun having Jenna control all the controls. I just get to teach. We'll see if there's any questions. For those of you guys probably heard our cat. Meditation was invented in India. It's not that quiet there, so we were trying to recreate that for you at our house. But even today, we don't typically teach together. Once in a while, we'll teach together. We never teach at our house. But they're trimming the trees at our studio today. It's much more quiet over there. But yesterday, we saw the tree trimming signs, and we're like, of all the days. But the first thing we did this morning was meditate. So that we would make sure that we were on point before we come in. We call it WPM, wake, pee, meditate. Even the Dalai Lama cannot meditate with a full bladder. It is a well-known fact. So I get to it right away. Then I have a mechanical advantage because I'm already a little bit sleepy. So question, can this help with sleep issues, falling asleep or staying asleep? We did do a sleep session. Absolutely. You can use these techniques if you're having a hard time going to sleep. Sometimes I say the difference between meditation and sleeping is sleep meditations are you're just reclined because we really just want to free up our minds for that.
Right. And we recorded our last session on sleep. It's in the CMC virtual archives. I've actually found and seen it. And so please give it a look. It'll answer those questions for you.
Somebody's off mute if you have a question. Thank you. It's been so fun to teach you guys and to get people, our goal is world domination through meditation. So we need you guys to get on board. But I'm a meditator in the morning. I was taught to meditate twice a day. I often don't do that second meditation in the day. Most 99 times out of 100, it looks more like a nap rather than a meditation. But I have time to talk about this. I call it my close of business meditation. So I will hopefully about 4 or 5 before everything's closed, I'll sit down and make a list of what I need to get done before things close, and then just take 10, 15 minutes to sit. I might sit outside and listen to the birds, like we did that sound meditation of shifting out to sound. That's a great place. We're in Portland, so we have a rain chain that I'll listen to a lot. Robin says, if I'm a senior parent, do I need to buy a snow globe? They're pretty handy. We have a couple in our house. And sometimes when I am really sort of at that place where, and even after 12 years of meditating, it's not like I walk around and ride a unicorn that sprays perfection everywhere. Sometimes I can get a little worked up, and also during the coronavirus. And I'll sit and just hang out and look at the snow globe and bring my heart rate down. Jenna, you want to add anything?
If anyone has not had a chance to introduce yourself in the group chat, I'd ask that you please include your name, year, affiliation, where you're tuning in from. That's really helpful for us to keep bringing you these virtual engagement activities, having people show up and request is very helpful so we know from what to bring you. Other than that, thank you so much, Melissa and Jeff. This was great. Again, I really appreciate your time. Thanks.
We're happy to be here, happy to help.
Yeah, and anytime, feel free to email us through our website if you have any questions or you're looking for additional materials, a book, a podcast. If you're successful in your meditation, we love to hear those stories, especially when we're talking to a computer all day and we're not having people come in and hug us and go, I can't believe it. I was able to bring my blood pressure down at the doctor. We are always open to questions. The conversation has, as we often say, the conversation has just begun.
I put our email in the chat. It's meditation4people@gmail.com.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great rest of your day. Bye.
Thanks for joining us.
All right. Bye. Thanks again.